Part 5 on Garvey, a little bit more on the colors. Black, the word Negro, and colored. Here's a great example, okay? Negro, the only people who has no knowledge of his or her true heritage. Black is not a country or nationality, it's a color, aka a crayon. So what is your nationality? We just talked about nationalities. We have some biblical verses in the corner if you want to look them up. Jeremiah 17, verse 4. It would be 2 Corinthians 18, verse 2. Hosea 4, verse 6. Isaiah 1, verse 3. Black, Negro, colored, not a nationality. We've already covered some more on that. Here's some examples of how they've always used these statuses to denationalize people. And notice that this is primarily only in the Americas. So what is it about the Americas that they had to figure out a way to denationalize you, to gain access to your lands and your estate, and make you basically a vagabond in the Americas primarily? Look at the word Indian. Then you have slave. Then you have Negro. Then you have black. You have Negro again. In 1950, you got colored. The color of law, colorable law. 1970s incorrect. Well, you got 1970, that was Afro-American. And anytime you see the word Afro, even when people talk about Afro-Cubans and Afro-Latinas and Afro-Mexicans, cut it out. They're Mexicans, they're Cubans, they're Dominicans. They're not Afro-Brazilians, they're Brazilians. They have a nationality. Afro is a hairstyle. It is a hairstyle. It is not a nationality. It is not an abbreviation for African. It's not. In 1980, you have black. In 1988, you have African American. There's Jesse Jackson. 1999, you have minority, right? 2000, back to black again. And in 2017, African American. And we just continue the cycle on and on and on. But why is it that they continue to change the classifications of the indigenous people of the Americas and often the world sometimes? Sometimes they try and take it overseas to foreign places, and sometimes the foreigners don't buy it. They stick to being called Germans or French or Australians. They don't, I'm a black Australian. No, they stick to the nationality. They know what the word black does. And we have to start to understand what it does and what it has done to us, Negro and colored. Black, bleak. If you look up the word black in the dictionary, you'll see it's spelled B-L-E-K, like bleak. The original meaning of the word black seems to be pale. Simona mid his blaken lichot, the moon with her pale light. Black or black, the pale-cheeked maiden, the blackovic, to lose color, to fade. Rus, the word Rus is important. Out of Rus we get the word Russia, but out of Rus is also the word Reds. And the word Rus initially has an origin in the Americas as well, which is surprisingly. Black nut, to fade, to wither. Bleaken, the bleak pale. You see that? The bleak, you see that? See that? The bleak pale, okay? Then as pale complexions take a bluish tint, the designation has passed on to mark the darker colors of the spectrum. And finally, black, a total absence of color. Okay? The ice blacker is explained by Anderson. Galacus C. Sabilis goes on, in like manner, e bleaken, to use signify pale or light colored, as well as livid or dark colored. Wax, pale or bleak. Bleak it. All right? Sunburn, to make bleak or swart, where the word swarthy comes from. A thing displayed in its hot. Bleak of color. Bleak in the sun. There's some other German definitions of black. Seems like it kind of means pale, to get, or absence of color. Black is white, and white is black. There was that song back in the 60s. I think he was trying to tell everybody what was up. But there we go again with that. As we move on, let me take you back to some revisionist history here. So I'm going to read a little bit of this, but I want you to look it up on the assassination of Mother Kofi. I'm just going to read a little bit, but I want you to look it up. It's called Murder at the Pulpit. It is from the Coral Gables Museum, and it's the Longview article. from Coral Gable. I'm going to give you an example of pure revisionist history. And as we go get into later, we're going to get into Laura Kofi, who was assassinated. And you, when I read the articles, it's going to tell you who did it. And they kind of admitted to who did it. There was 500 witnesses to who did it. Well, 300 that saw it. But this is a pure example of revisionist history right here. A lot of what they're telling us today, when you just Google certain things, you get the basic layout of information, but it's not true. It's totally untrue. As a matter of fact, it's making you kind of applaud and be thankful and happy and want to jump for joy over a lot of historical figures when in actuality, they were doing just the opposite. So, murder at the pulpit, assassination of Mother Kofi. This is pure revisionist history. I got to keep saying it. It was an overcast evening, dampened by light showers as the crowd moved into Fox Thompson Hall in Liberty City. They had come to hear Mother Kofi, the lecturer and her missionary, whom the community, indeed many of the nation's urban black population had come to know the past few years as speaker. Listen to this, speaker for the Universal Negro Improvement Association. In recent years, thousands have flocked to her to hear impassioned speeches on the need for black populations to reclaim their native patronymy by returning to Africa. However, when she founded the African Universal Church the year before and began mixing UNIA's purely secular goals with deeply religious overtones, the relationship had become bitter. When she split off the UNIA, she took with her most of their local members to her church. The UNIA befell trade and irate. Tensions and angers were running high. So this basically goes on to say that she was assassinated. She was basically shot during one of her speeches, but you see how it ties her instantly to the Universal Negro Improvement Association, like she was with them and she split. Mother Kofi was never with the Universal Negro Improvement Association. In fact, she spoke against them from jump, and her father spoke against them as frauds and is trying to set up colonies in. Now, she wasn't even from Liberia. She's from another part of Africa. But she spoke against the UNI and Garvey as frauds, that they hadn't made the proper connections to make anything happen over there. And they were basically taking people's money in the Americas. She already had a trade established with places in Miami and also in Louisiana, to where they were doing trade back and forth from different nations of Africa with different local communities of Africans that had moved here from Africa, and even the indigenous autochthonous populations that you would call blacks that were here already from here. They were already doing business. And she was not telling anybody to move back to Africa, come back to your home. We'll read that later on. This is basic bullshit, to where they're trying to make it look like somebody in history is now tied to the UNIA and was for the UNIA, when that is absolutely incorrect. And we will show you those newspaper clippings later on. She opposed Garvey, seriously opposed Garvey. But she had basically was doing other business and other connections with a lot of different communities. And I think there was probably some jealousy there, because she was very wealthy, and a lot of the communities that she was doing business with were doing very well. And these were your largely what you would call Garvey must go movement came out of. You probably never even heard of the Garvey must go movement. But these were people that knew they were from here, that were doing business and trade with Africans from Ghana and other places. And they were doing well and very well respected. And you probably never heard of these people. Why? Because we got to make it look like, see, in history, they got to make it look like, oh no, see, everybody, all of us come from Africa, and we got to go back to Africa, and, you know, the Negro, black and colored, and black power, and we got to do that, and we got to leave America, we got to, yep. Mother Kofi. Once again, you can find this from the Coral Gables Museum, the long deal article. It is a long article. The article is so long, they got to be lying. The truth is only in small books. So once again, we're going to continue to dig into Garvey. Peace. All right, part 6. Marcus Garvey. Here we're going to deal with the slaying of Princess Laura Kofi. Reading from the article at the time. It is titled King Mississippi sails to aid probe of daughter's death in Florida. 7 rulers sought U.S. Negroes' cooperation. So here we are. Florida, March 21st. A sentinel case which promised to be of interest to every colored American has developed here from the slaying of Princess Laura Kofi, the daughter of King Mississippi of Gold Coast of Africa. Followers of Marcus Garvey, recently deported originator of the Back to Africa movement, whose policies she opposed are blamed for her death. And she opposed Garvey. It has been disclosed, according to the state attorney Hawthorne, that 7 kings, people, of the Gold Coast repudiated Garvey and his plans and principles, principally because Garvey wanted to keep Negroes to themselves in his proposed colony there. The African kings saw an opportunity for opening up a profitable trade with the United States, and Princess Laura was sent as their representative to warn colored Americans to beware of Garvey. Also, to prepare them for the proposed opening of commerce between colored Americans and their race brothers in Africa. Laura invaded Miami on her patriotic mission because it was considered the stronghold of Garvey's group in the United States, and she was shot to death in a church here 2 weeks ago while conducting a vigorous anti-Garvey meeting. Take that all in, people. Here is Garvey and the Pan-Africanists saying that you're Africans and you need to return to Africa, and we need to go there and build a great economic colony so we can escape the oppression of the vicious Europeans here in America. Go back to Africa, the motherland, and why his followers are basically killing Africans coming here that are saying, no, we brothers, yeah, but we can establish trade, but you coming over there, you're going to have problems. You got to do it the right way. And then they kill her. King sails to U.S. Now, here is the connection between several organizations, this name right here, Claude Green. We find this name Claude Green in what was called the Moore Science Temple. He was Claude Green Bay. Now we find his name in the Garveyites. And later on, he was changed his name from Claude Green to Claude Green Muhammad. From Bay to Muhammad. So it kind of shows you who he decided to go with. But here's a name. Claude Green, colored American, is being held, isn't this interesting, on first-degree murder charge. James H. Nemo, Jamaican, on an accessory charge in connections with the death of the princess. These men and Maxwell Cook said to have been sent here to train Negroes for military duty in Liberia. These men and Maxwell Cook said to have been sent here to train Negroes for military duty in Liberia. Well, if they're training somebody, it would pretty much, you can make the conclusion that they had training. But this guy right here, Claude Green, he changed his name from Bay to Muhammad. He sure did. It's the same Claude Green we find. It's the same time frame. This guy was obviously an agent. Claude Green. But here it says that basically they're gonna go train some people. So they had some type of training. Where they get it from? These men, Maxwell, Cook, said to have been sent here to train Negroes for military duty in Liberia. What you need that for? Were looks like reported. Maybe that's a typo. Reported to be agents of Garvey. Yep, absolutely. Cook, however, lost his life on the night that the princess was slain. Isn't that something? How does it say he lost his life? When members of her faction suspected that he was participating in the alleged conspiracy, the grand jury is investigating the case, and King, not pronouncing his name right, excuse me, my African brothers, King Mississippi, has sent word that he is sailing for America to investigate the death of his daughter, and more than 100 Negroes have been summoned to appear before a grand jury. By the way, I need to stop here and let you all know that someone please check and verify, because there was reports that there were people that were Garveyites that were, some of them made it over to Liberia, and it didn't turn out very well. So I have one brother that says he has a connection with some people. He's an older brother, much older, that says he has a connection with some people that can confirm that initially it didn't go well when they got there, that it went pretty bad. But the colored citizens of Miami are preparing to receive the king and members of his court, who are expected to arrive here within a month. It is said that the slaying of Princess Laura was a bold stroke on the part of Garvey. To put an end to her career. And the letters have been placed in the hands of the postal inspector, in which the plot is revealed. So that is the truth about Princess Laura Kofi and her father. But did you see what I read before on the revision history? They're trying to make it look like she was always with Garvey, and she was the old mother. She's the mother of the UNIA, Mother Kofi. And no, she was against Garvey from jump. So was 7 other kings. He kind of made that clear. Here it is right here, man. Here's another one. Now let me show you the date of this letter as well. Let me enlarge it for you. This is November 5th, 1921. And this is out of the Chicago Whip, out of Chicago, Illinois. And it says here, Garvey whip anti-Garvey prince. Garveyites whip anti-Garveyite prince. It's appearing to be that the Garveyite movement was nothing more than what we would call the modern day Black Lives Matter movement. Funded by Europeans, we'll see that, where they extorted the money from hard-working brothers and sisters, and they was buying mansions and the whole thing. You're going to see Garvey was doing the same thing. Painful, people, but painful. You may ask the question, why am I doing this? It is because there was comments made that Garvey was a forerunner to Drew Ali, and our ideologies are totally opposite. Philosophies are totally opposite. The only thing they had in common was economics. But you can't build a nation if you don't have a nationality. And Garvey was anti-nationality. Something didn't fit right with that. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to read out of the Circle 7 Holy Quran later on, chapter 48. Garvey's name is mentioned, but it's obviously that Drew Ali didn't write it, because it's written in the second person. Somebody put that in there. But here we go. Garveyites whip anti-Garvey prince. Philadelphia, November 5th, when Prince Madrikan Denya of royal African blood attempted to hold an anti-Marcus Garvey meeting at the Olympic Theater last Sunday, Garveyites charged the stage and broke up the meeting. He was introduced by the president of the African Sawmill Company, and as soon as he began his speech, the Garveyites rushed up, and one of them delivered a stinging blow to his jaw. With yells and whoops not unlike cries from the African jungles, they rushed him from the stage. Police later restored order. That is from the Chicago Whip. The date is November 5th, 1921. Here's another one. This is Gold Coast Ruler. Trying to see what date it's from, people. What am I doing here? Let's see. Go back. Here we go. This is from the Brooklyn Daily Eagle on March 21st, 1928. The Gold Coast Ruler, King Mississippi of Africa, is on his way to Miami, Florida to investigate the death of his daughter, Princess Laura Kofi, who was killed there 2 weeks ago while addressing a gathering of Negroes opposed to the plans of Marcus Garvey, Negro liberator recently deported. And that was Wednesday, March 21st, 1928. And I also want you guys to understand, as I'm reading some of these newspapers, it's a lot. I have a lot on Garvey that I'm probably not going to share with you in this video. Probably have to do a part 2 to get to some of the other information. But I'm going to try and read as much as I can to you. This is an anti-Garvey posting. Return of colored people to dark continent is impossible, owing to material progress made by them. It is announced. This is going to show you something very, very interesting. It's a clipping I found. I'm trying to find the original newspaper because it talks about a lot of this, and they're hiding this. So if somebody has this paper, it just says Negro race has 1 billion in the U.S. and that's it, it cuts off. But this is going to make you have some suspicions about what they told us about slavery. Because the amount of money and wealth we had established in the 1900s is amazing if you were just enslaved 80 years before. It is simply mind-blowing. So, I mean, I know they're lying about slavery, but you can't even say that to people because of their mind state, cognizance, dissonance. You can't even mention that. They don't even think about it. But some of these articles in the 1900s are showing you that we had immense wealth. Immense wealth. 1900s. Here we go. Kansas City, Missouri, disenfranchised the Negro and sent him back to Africa. Absurd, impossible. More than $1 billion. This is the 1920s. $1 billion worth of United States real estate, people, which he owns in his own name. That means we have not yet been denationalized, even though they use the word Negro. We have not yet been denationalized at this time in his own name. And the United States is not easily to be taken from him. That means it's attached to a nationality. It's easy to get it if you don't have a nationality. Besides, the Negro is not an African. Oh, shit. Yeah, motherfuckers. Yeah. Y'all want to talk all that BS? The Negro is not an African. He is an American. African is a misnomer. Why try to send him to a country which is not his own? So you can probably find this right here here we can find it by here. So says Dr. J.R. Hawkins of North Carolina, Secretary Commissioner of Education for the African Methodist Episcopal Church, a delegate to the General Conference. Well. Yep. I wonder what $1 billion is today as far as now remember this is when money was backed by gold and silver, so it was worth a whole lot more. So we continue on. This is from, I'm gonna learn my lesson by keep hitting that switch. This is from another murder that the Garveyites are responsible for. Saturday, November 4th, 1922. Saturday, November 4th, 1922. Dallas Express newspaper, Dallas, Texas. And some of these newspapers also that I'm reading for are not white newspapers. And this is another thing we got to look into about the 1900s, the reset of the 1900s. We owned a whole lot of shit in the 1900s. Newspapers of land, airports all over the country, not just in what you would call in Tulsa. We had Black Wall Streets all over the place. A lot of them were in Kansas, by the way. Marcus Garvey, November 2nd. Marcus Garvey, president, UNIA, was forced by the council to resign his position as business director of that location. Dr. You're going to find out that a lot of people that Garvey was dealing with were not your average everyday working Americans, black Negroes, coloreds. They weren't. He went after wealthy. He had a lot of wealthy people in his circle. That's who he targeted, was the wealthy, the rich. Dr. Leroy Bundy of East St. Louis, who at the last convention of the Negroes was elected the first assistant president general, but he refused the association's business affairs, was immediately elected to succeed Garvey as business director. Bundy, it was declared, will direct the business and the fraternal side of the UNIA, while Garvey will remain as president general. Garvey denies that he had been forced out, declaring that merely a subdivision of labor had been made by the council, but Dr. Bundy is under indictment in Illinois for murder in connection with the East St. Louis race riots, July 2nd, 1917. He was tried, found guilty, and sentenced to life imprisonment by the Circuit Court. Waterloo served a year sentence before he was released. $50,000 appeal for bond. Later, the Illinois Supreme Court reversed the decision. And here it is right here. A fund said to exceed $5,000 for Bundy's defense was raised by Negro organizations throughout the United States. His father is chancellor of Wilberforce University. See there, look at that. Wilberforce University near Cleveland, Ohio. His uncle is the United States Consular Service at Liberia. He was surrounded by some elite people there, wasn't he? Right? Not just your average everyday working people around Mr. Garvey. You know, just the average brother. You want the average Negro money? I have another article that's going to show you exactly what he's doing. And this is just saying it's Marcus Garvey, leader to be deported, 5-year sentence, fraud in mail, cut in Atlanta. And that is this about the Yarmouth? Let me go ahead and read this one since I have it in front of you. I'll go ahead and read it again. I hit that wrong button again. Let me enlarge the article. 5-year sentence to Marcus Garvey. Defrauding Back to Africa Negro colonizational project has been commuted. Let's go on. Garvey was the leader of the Back to Africa that has caused strife in Negro circles for years. Do you see that? That has caused strife in Negro circles for years. He styled himself His Highness, given titles right here, colorful uniforms, all this stuff. His activities as president of the Black Star Line, a steamship company formed ostensibly to transport American Negroes back to Africa. To transport who? American Negroes back to Africa. You know, I got a question about all that too. What about the Negroes that was in South America? Did you want to take them back to Africa? This was primarily an American organization. Transport American Negroes back to Africa. To cut short his ambitious career when he was taken to the penitentiary in February 1925, announced he would be deported. Maintain innocence. He was convicted of using mail to defraud. Basically, he was telling people to send in money, and the money wasn't going to the investments. The steamship line was capitalized at $10 million. 10 million people. The government charged he defrauded between 30,000 and 40,000. Do y'all see that? Defrauded between 30,000 and 40,000 Negroes. Police on various occasions were called to maintain order when Negro friends and enemies of Garvey clashed during heated arguments at mass meetings in Harlem, and feeling ran high in various sections of in the South, in New Orleans. This is very important right here. Reverend J.W. Easton, pastor of a Negro church, was slain on the eve of his departure from New York to testify against Garvey. Let me read that again. In New Orleans, Reverend W.W. Easton, pastor of a Negro church, was slain on the eve of his departure for New York to testify against Garvey. How are we moving like that and doing things like that at that time? Garvey's activities touched even the Ku Klux Klan. Edward Young Clark, Imperial Caliph of the Klan, came from Atlanta to testify before the grand jury concerning a secret visit. He said Garvey paid him. His trial was as colorful as his previous career. Witness for the prosecution were treated with violence, and a vigilante guard was maintained over the courtroom. You see that, people? During the proceedings, Garvey discharged his counsel and took charge of his own defense. He charged that he was being persecuted by the government, and that in that an assistant district attorney had sent a man to kill him. So the connections with the Klan at the time, and this is not in Garvey's defense, but the Klan, and I know there's another brother that put out a video about Garvey and the Klan, but the Klan was very powerful at the time. Due to the 1900s and Jim Crow laws, due to this reset of history, and people of certain ilks were being put into positions of power, and you were being labeled a Negro, black, and colored, and from Africa, that a lot of your land in the States was being taken. And at the time, the Klan's numbers were growing. They had people in government. They had people everywhere. There's the Klan on paper in the 1900s. So maybe that's something the other guy doesn't know, but it wouldn't be unusual for someone to meet with the Klan to basically say, I need some protection when I'm moving about. By the way, of course, the Klan would also be in lines with Garvey with removing wealthy Negroes from America, or declassifying them as Negroes and colors and get them to Africa, because now the Klan can get your shit. And they did get it, and they were getting it at the time. So basically, once again, without saying right now Garvey was a part of something much bigger, he was a part of something much bigger. And we'll get into that later. We'll show you later. So bet on races. Among the witnesses for the government was a former partner named Sir Sidney DeBorg of Trinidad. Now this name is given Knight Commander of the Nile, Duke of Nigeria and Uganda, Sir Sidney DeBorg. But you all of this and you a sir, he's a foreigner. He's not from Africa. He testified that Garvey used the funds of the steamship line to bet on horse races. A Negro skipper of the Yarmouth, only ship owned by the line, testified that Garvey used it to mainly to sell stock to Negroes. Garvey still has hanging over him an indictment charged perjury in a divorce suit. The indictment charged that he made a fraudulent income tax return. That ain't no big deal. One of Garvey's fancies is expressed before a religious meeting of his university. A religious meeting, because what the UNIA was doing is basically starting a new faith. It is a new faith among the tenets of which that God and Christ and the angels are black, while Satan and the imps are white. So a lot of people were wondering where some of the God is black teachings come from, the angels are white teachings come from, that's that's permissive into a lot of organizations and groups and societies at the time. There you have it. Even though we can say that a lot of the people in the Bible are melanated, but there was some serious teachings with some serious groups out there that it's almost like what you would call a black supremacy, which is black. Remember the word black. So you're taking the nationality away from even Christ, which is also a title, which is caressed consciousness. But anyway, but the UNIA, as I told people before, and Pan-Africanism is a religion. It's a religion. It is a religion. So there's a lot here that you can digest, right? I wanted to mention too the name of the ship, the Yarmouth, which was renamed, right? A Negro skipper of the Yarmouth. That's one of Garvey's ships, the Yarmouth. Yarmouth, if you look up Yarmouth, England, and the Yarmouth Masonic Lodge, yeah, the Yarmouth Masonic Lodge. We're going to get into that later. So here we go, some more stuff on Garvey. Garvey's from London, right? Well, not Garvey from London, but he spent a lot of time in London. Of course, when he went to school at the university over there. And I'm going to give you the name of the video too here in a minute. I'm going to pull that up next and give you the name of the video to watch, where the lady is talking about Garvey from Yarmouth and his experiences there. New York, this is January 29th. A rebuke was made public Monday. Title is, here's the title: New York leaders flay Marcus Garvey. Okay, so look the article up. I forgot to write the year down, but New York 29th. A rebuke was made public Monday morning, which was given Marcus Garvey, former UNIA associate leader here for his attack on Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie. Yeah, see, y'all Rastafarians be going, our brothers love Garvey. Y'all ran him out of Jamaica at first because you didn't want to give up that nationality. He was trying to call y'all Negroes, and y'all like, nah, we Jamaicans, man. Jamaicans, descendants of Maroons, we get down. We didn't come over there. We wasn't brought over here on ships. So y'all was all with that. Here's Garvey going after Haile Selassie. Attack on Emperor Haile Selassie. In the Negro press last week, the rebuke came from a joint statement issued to the Negro editors of the country by 3 outstanding citizens who have supported Haile Selassie Fund, who served as physician to the Ethiopian army on the Northern Front. As comptroller. Those issuing the statement, here's the names: Williams Lloyd Ames, pastor, a Pedestrian Church. It goes on and gives all the names. Recently, when Emperor Haile Selassie thanked the American people for aid given Ethiopia through Dr. Bayan in a transatlantic broadcast. See how we was helping out the Ethiopians, man. The brothers over here was sending the money and all that too. Here it is right here, man. Surprise at attack. Blasting Garvey. The statement follows in part. Mr. Marcus Garvey is not the new American Negro public, because Garvey was trying to say he represented all of us all over the world, everywhere. He was saying he was the voice of us everywhere. Kind of like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton does, and some other people do, like they the voice of us, right? When it's a lot we don't agree with them Negroes about, and they are Negroes. In fact, he is well known in New York, Atlanta, and other places. It may be readily recalled that at one time he very vociferously advocated a homeland in Africa for American Negroes and collected huge sums for the purpose of buying ships to transport American Negroes to Africa. He very naively got around the fact that the parts of Africa which he proposed to colonize were already occupied by declaring his infamous Madison Square Garden speech, "We will tell the British to get out of here. We will tell the French to get out of here. We will tell other white nations to get out of here." You're going to go to some place you're not from with people that are not from there and tell everybody else to leave. By the way, there was a lot of melanated people who call themselves French. A lot of British call themselves Britons. Look just like you and I. They're not all white people. Mr. Garvey can reconcile his dream of African empire with his present advice to American Negroes to refuse to help Ethiopia preserve her ancient homeland is more than we can see. Do y'all know that? Do y'all know that he was saying that? I got a lot on Garvey, man, and it's painful. It is absolutely painful. Some of these newspapers are ours. Consider Garvey's record. We think not, and we believe few Negroes will listen to the man from London. Did you just check that shit out? Let me say that again. We think not, and we believe few Negroes will listen to the man from London, who formerly had the full confidence of American Negroes and abused it. We urge all American Negroes to consider Garvey's record, then consider the record of Emperor Haile Selassie as a statesman, general of his armies, and as a pleader for the stricken country at Geneva. Then consider the embattled Ethiopians who are still wresting the total destruction of this ancient culture that is a credit to the black man throughout the world. After considering all these things, we believe you will continue to help. Garvey's telling you not to help the Ethiopians who just came out of a serious battle. The Irish of Americas has helped for many years the Irish back home, and as a result, the Irish now have a free state. Let us be no less willing to sacrifice for the larger things in our racial life. And I want to show you guys, this is what Haile Selassie really knew, and what a lot of people really know about Ethiopia. Okay, this is the original Ethiopia, which is South America. The other Ethiopians in Africa is a satellite. This is the original. Mardi, Ethiopia, part 7. Once again, I was saying this is what Haile Selassie knew. This is the original Ethiopia. Ethiopia. Ethiops. Spelled with an A. It's Aethiopia. Mardi, Ethiopia. This is the original Ethiopia, South America. America is the true old world. A lot of places in Africa are satellite kingdoms and nations. Some of them have been there for a while with other names, and others are not as old as you think. So, we're going to continue with Garvey. Part 7 here. Marcus Garvey warns American Negroes against racket. Credit to Haile Selassie. So here's another one you can pull up. If you didn't believe me on the first one, this one is from the Black Dispatch, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, January 21st, 1937. Told you about all the stuff that we had in the 1900s. And it was kind of lost soon after that. But here's another article you can look up if you want to read about Garvey going against the Emperor Haile Selassie. The Emperor Haile Selassie. Okay. Crazy, huh? That's another one. So I won't read that one to you. You can look it up. Black Dispatch, Oklahoma City. The date is January 21st, 1937. Okay, here we go again. This is Garvey admits guilt. This is the Dallas Express, another one of ours. May 27, 1922. We had a lot of people working at this newspaper in the 20s. What was really going on in the 20s that they ain't really telling us about? 1900s, man. All they show you is a bunch of light-skinned people walking around everywhere. Garvey and the public on trial. Garvey on trial, charged with fraud. Marcus Garvey has admitted. Y'all ready for this? Y'all ready for this, right? Okay. Pan-Africanists. Y'all ready for this? Garvey has admitted that practically all of the $600,000 entrusted to his care by investors in the Black Star Line and its kindred corporations has been squandered. I can enlarge this if you want to, but squandered. Okay, I'll keep going. The expose of the conditions of the organization came to light following Edward Orr's charge of fraud against the Black Star Line. Orr asserted that he had attended one of the meetings in Liberty Hall and heard Garvey tell the audience how he would double within 60 days the money that invested into the first steamship line owned, operated, and controlled by the race. Okay, Orr put in $105 has not received a dividend. Garvey vehemently denied the accusation that he would guarantee any such thing as a return on the money within 2 months. It goes on and talks about how he was duped, how the gentleman was duped, but Garvey did kind of admit that he did accept the money, but he didn't tell him when he would get his money back. So why would I give you money if you're not telling me when I'm going to get it back, or what I'm going to get back? And these are, when you look up these names, they're prominent people. Okay, Edward Orr, they're not, most of them are they own real estate, land businesses. And you're going to see this is much part of something very big, man. On the finish of the trial, the judge, in addressed his remarks to Garvey, said, "It seems to me that you have been preying upon the gullibility of your own people, having kept no proper accounts of the money received for investment." He wasn't even keeping track of the money that was coming in, people. Being an organization of high finance, you see that? Being an organization of high finance. Do you guys understand what that means? You're dealing with a lot of people that's giving you some serious money. You're dealing with a lot of people that has money, in which the officers received outrageously high salaries and were permitted to have exorbitant expense accounts for pleasure jaunts throughout the country. I advise these dupes who have contributed to these organizations to go into court and ask for the appointment of a receiver. You should have taken this $600,000 and built a hospital for colored people in this city instead of purchasing a few old boats. We're going to get into the purchase of the boats and how the people told him that the boats were no good for what he said he was trying to do. Tales such as the following close in the publicity Garvey and his movement have received at the hands of the press, both white and Negro. At the hands of the press, both white and Negro, will do much to rivet the close attention of the country to it and invite a closer scrutiny of its business methods. Do you understand that even our media was going at him hard in the Dallas? This is the Dallas Express. I named the paper in the year. Our media was going at him hard. The other article said he was causing contention the whole time from a year and a half after he was up and running. There was always something going on. On first sight, even these methods do not recommend themselves to prudent men, and it is fair to believe that their apparencies are not wholly deceptive. Okay, Garvey is misguided. He appears spectacular rather than practical, and his appeal to the emotions of our people, 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 that is our fucking problem. We're way too emotional and we don't sit back and think and analyze. This is how they get us every time. The appeal to the emotions of our people. Already too much given to feeling rather than thinking. You see that? Too much given to feeling rather than thinking. You see this shit? Has awakened the response in the sum of $600,000, which he has not had the ability to prove well placed. This is just one. He's accused of some other money too. That's just this one charge, y'all. Don't think that that's it. All right? Listen to this. There is no one in America who does not know that the Negro is exploited more and often than any other of God's creatures living here. Black, Negro, colored, African American, minority. Only these names are placed on us here. You understand what they're talking about? Since his emancipation, his gullibility has filled the pockets and enriched the coffers of schemers galore. Yeah, we can go on. Y'all need to read this article for yourselves, because they're basically breaking it down. They're breaking it all down here about how you keep falling for this bullshit. So this is a full ad on Garvey's corruption. And this is the Pittsburgh Courier, Saturday, March 29th, 1930. Pittsburgh Courier, Saturday, March 29th, 1930. That's how you pull it up. And this is a full ad. See that? Under the girl here, Garvey. This is look at all this in here. I can enlarge it and read all of it to you, but I'm not. Because it just goes on to tell you that he's defrauding a lot of people. A lot of people lost a lot of money, a lot of land. All right? This is Garvey, agent for other shores. This is basically saying he's an agent for other shores. And this is from the California Eagle. Saturday, September 9th, 1922. All right? It's the California Eagle. 1922. So, maybe I should read some of this to you since you don't have it. There's a new spirit among Negroes, abroad among Negroes. It permeates them everywhere. In some places, they cannot express themselves quite as freely in others. Yet even here there are rumblings of discontent to be heard in the distance. All right, it goes on. Okay, it's talking about, here is the other one right here. Let's start right here. I'm going to skip down a little bit. It says Marcus Garvey must go. Okay. School politicians thought have joined hands with the Friends of the Negro Freedom in expressing the slogan, Garvey must go. You guys ever heard of the Garvey must go movement? I doubt it. First of all, Garvey's numbers were extremely exaggerated, but the Garvey must go movement was very, very large, and it was growing massively. Probably never even heard of the Garvey must go movement. I'd never heard of it, and I've been reading about Garvey since I was young. Never heard of the Garvey must go movement. But for 4 hours straight Sunday, for 4 straight Sundays, more than 2,000 people have come out at 3 o'clock and sat there for hours as various phrases of Negro questions were unfolded. And while Garvey's unspeakable treachery was roundedly denounced, at first there was a few slight interruptions from the Garvey fanatics, but the writer Philip Randolph, Robert Bourne, and William Pickens made it perfectly clear that no interruption would be tolerated. At the second meeting, every man who raised his voice above a whisper in interruption, I had the police pitch out in a few seconds. The third meeting was perfectly quiet, and it goes on to talk about the meetings. The last meeting had one interruption, but the interruption was shot out the door so fast that it seemed that the police were firing him from a gun. Nobody else dared to disrupt after that, because the Garveyites would come and interrupt any meetings about anybody who was speaking against them. It's amazing that the police was already here set up. So that's showing you how bad it was getting. And this was going on in different cities. It wasn't just 1 or 2 cities. The audience would not tolerate it for a moment. So that's all the interruptions and the disruptions. The meetings were regularly attended by more than 2,000. Here we go. The meetings were regularly attended by more than 2,000 of the most representative American and West Indian Negroes. Practically every intelligent Negro from the West Indies agreed that Garvey misrepresented them. Let me say this shit again. American and West Indian Negroes, practically every intelligent Negro from the West Indies agreed that Garvey misrepresented them and that they should join in a rigorously repudiated such as a good nigger type. The first 3 Sundays were 3 of the hottest. It's just talking about the meetings here, but just to show y'all that. He goes on to talk about Garvey, and pretty extensive article. You'll find a lot of articles on Marcus Garvey in the newspapers in the 1900s, and that should raise questions alone. So here's Black Star Line. This is Garvey's Ships No Good. This is New York, New York, August 22nd, 1922. This covers how the ships were no good. Okay, and I will read a little bit of this to you in case you're driving or listening to it at work and got time to look. The state of the fleet of the Black Star Line, with which Marcus Garvey, hailed by his supporters as provisional president of the African Republic, hoped to bring American Negroes back to their birthright, and was revealed yesterday when Garvey was examined in the supplementary proceedings for attorney of the Pan Union Company, which is seeking to satisfy a judgment of $6,000 against the line. Garvey president, most of whose members were also stockholders. You understand? You got to have a little bit of money to do that then. Appeared at the office of the Samuel D. Spector, attorney for Pan Union Company. Keeps going on. Let me continue. The steamship company has no accounts receivable, Garvey testified. And of the 3 vessels which it was organized to operate, one is on the beach at Antigua, Cuba. Sitting on the beach in Antigua, Cuba. The second vessel is a wreck somewhere in New York Harbor, and the third, the Yarmouth, was sold by the United States Marshal for $1,800 to satisfy claims of almost $100,000.